unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty brought to you in partnership with MyPillow.com. A week after his re-election, Donald Trump is accelerating construction of his leadership team, and so far, his picks appear to have the right stuff.
The level of sophistication on the issues is so far beyond what it was in 2017. They've already started playing this chess on how to get the agenda put into play. They've been working on this for 4 years. So Sean's exactly right. This is not going to look anything like it did in 2017. This is going to be, Trump 1.0 on steroids.
More on Trump's gathering dream team in a moment, but first,
there's always a question on someone's record and what they say and how they lean, and then of course the actual in-person inner circle conversations and alignments.
Trump has laid out a bold plan of action for taking down the deep state and restoring the United States to greatness. To drive his agenda forward, he's working furiously to assemble a new leadership team equal to the task of making America great again. Here to discuss all this with us today is Souls and Liberty contributor Arthur Clareau. I'm your host, Stephen Wynn, coming to you from Kansas City. Arthur, yesterday we talked about how Trump had named former ICE director Thomas Homeland to be his new border czar, and Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York to serve as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Both very solid picks there. Well, now, of course, in the past 24 hours, we've had a slew of new names announced. Tell us about some of those.
Trump's picked his chief of staff. He's picked a few policy advisors. He's picked different roles that are crucial to his administration, but that don't need Senate confirmation yet. Now he's leaning towards those other key roles, the very important ones that are going to make or break his upcoming administration, which will need Senate confirmation. So that's, the Attorney General, the secretaries, many of those cabinet positions. Some of the people who we've heard whose names have been kind of tossed around recently are Lee Zeldin for EPA director. Now that's going to be a big one because a huge part of Trump's campaign promises was to unleash energy. This is on behalf of Europe. America would love to take that role of supplying the energy needed for Europe to become great again. They really do need it. But also for the United States, of course, right? Unleashing U.S. energy, that's jobs, that's lower gas prices, that's everything that is needed. So that's going to be a big one. This is also a really important opportunity for whoever takes that role to show that it's not the left that has the market cornered on environmental protection, right? Yeah. Conservatives are also conservationists. We care about our environment. We care about our land, our water, our air. So that's going to be a big one. As far as Lee Zeldin is concerned, he's mentioned several times about his desire to revitalize American energy, revitalize American jobs, and to remove barriers to fossil fuel production, which is a big one. That was a big Obama era issue. So that's one. If I'm not mistaken, not all of these have been confirmed yet. Many of these are still rumors, but they're rumors that seem to be coming from the inner circle of the Trump campaign. So that, there's something to hang your hat on there. Yeah. Another one for Secretary of State is Marco Rubio. That's an interesting one because Rubio and Trump had a rocky start to their relationship in 2016, let's put it that way. But so far, since then, apparently it's improved. Rubio, as the son of Cuban immigrants, has had he's had a strong effect in Florida on the anti-communist movement. He knows communism firsthand, as do many Cuban Americans. So that's going to be a very interesting perspective as well. There's more to discuss about him later, but that he seems to be the favorite for the Secretary of State role. Although there are other also qualified, also great picks in the running there. Mike Waltz of Florida has been named as the National Security Advisor. I'm just checking my notes here real quick, but he's a bit of a hawk, to be completely honest. But then at the same time, in a warrior position, you kind of want warriors, and Waltz is a Green Beret. or was a Green Beret. So the man knows what he's talking about. He served in Afghanistan. He served in the Middle East. He served in Africa. There's a lot there's a lot of wisdom in a pick like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's the director. There's Secretary of Homeland Security, and the name that's been floated for that one recently is Kristi Noem, former governor of South Dakota. And she was amazing when it came to COVID and ensuring that people had their freedom of choice. If I'm not mistaken, she didn't shut down the state at all,
Right.
and kept it open during that time, which was very brave, because at that time, if I'm not mistaken, even Florida was not fully open.
Yeah.
So, strong woman, brave woman, and she's taken a lot of heat on her stance on illegal immigration and on crime and on how to restore the security and safety of Americans. So that's a very interesting pick. Obviously, we'll talk more about that.
All right, very good. Yeah, very good snapshot there of what appears to be a very strong leadership team. And when we come back, we'll explore why Trump's picks are the right men and women for the job. Stay tuned.
The establishment has tried to assassinate President Trump twice. But we can't really be shocked that those who slaughter 1 million unborn babies each year would try to kill one more human being who stands in the way of their diabolical agenda. Trump, like every one of us, including all of us at Souls and Liberty, is a sinner. But like all of us, he is in the fight and fighting for all of us to get one more chance, maybe a last chance, to save the republic. We must hang together, or as Benjamin Franklin said, we shall hang separately. And maybe far sooner than many imagine, because communists take over and always persecute Christians and Catholics in particular. Let us help you fight these forces of evil. Become a monthly supporter today so we can continue giving you the information, the tools of our faith, and the support network you need to go out and save souls and save our nation. Join our merry band of happy warriors and click below to get into the fight. We need you, we need each other. Join the resistance. Become a monthly donor today.
After 4 calamitous years of Biden-Harris rule, it's going to take a lot to put the United States back on its feet. But if anyone is up to the task, it's the folks that Trump is now assembling in D.C. Arthur, the men and women that Trump has tapped thus far, why are they so well suited to helping make America great again?
One way that you can see the strength of the people that he's choosing is in how the other side is responding to them. I always find that an interesting way of looking at it. And for many of these people, let's take someone like Stephen Miller, for example, who Trump tapped as deputy policy advisor. He was in the first Trump campaign, administration, and he was one of the sources of the potential ban on certain nations from which came most of the terrorists and people that were not necessarily coming in as a benefit to the United States. That got Trump in a lot of trouble with the media, of course, but then what didn't? But it's that sort of it's the kind of core group of people that have been America first for a very long time, that have been with him for a very long time, that I think he believes that he can trust with this agenda going forward. There were many mistakes in the first Trump campaign. I think everyone will agree with that. A lot of trying to figure out who fits where, and then also, I mean, that was in the middle of a transition where the Republican Party was going from a very neocon party to something more approximating what we see today with the MAGA movement and the kind of focus on putting America first and not just everything being focused on overseas. So I think that there were a lot of lessons learned there. There are still many concerns. If you go on X right now and look up the names of the people he's choosing, there's obviously a lot of conversation going on around that. But we also have to remember that he has good people around him still. that are very concerned to make sure that he picks the right picks this time around. He's got a great transition team. I was just listening this morning to Tulsi Gabbard speaking about this. She's on the transition team. Dave Smith, who's a libertarian I admire very much, had an entire conversation on X with Donald Trump Jr. about not filling all these positions with neocons once again. And Donald Trump Jr. said, I'm on it. So in the end, we can hope that they are. We can make our voices heard. We can share our perspective, but ultimately it's his choice on who he puts in those positions.
Yeah. Trump has said even recently that he's going to be going with his gut this time around, and hopefully avoiding some of the bad picks that filtered in, wormed their way in last time. So I'm hopeful that he'll have a very solid team behind him. I think thus far things are looking good. We'll see how they continue to unfold. When we come back, we'll discuss the common thread linking Trump's picks. Stay with us.
Because of your overwhelming support, our 1488 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
The men and women of Trump's new leadership team tout proven track records that reflect the president-elect's common sense policy prescriptions. They're all about cutting the communist chains that have been strangling this country for the past many years, even decades. And that is their appeal. Common sense. It's the common thread linking Trump's picks. Wouldn't you say, Arthur?
Yeah, there's certainly a common thread. There are certainly common themes in Trump's picks so far. And they really do just center around the promises he made. And you can kind of see from the picks he's making now, from his priorities and what he's focused on right out the gate, which campaign promises are kind of the major focus, at least in the first few days here. One of those is immigration, without a doubt. Again, it was one of the big issues, one of the biggest issues for the American voter. So that's kind of goes without saying that it would be a focus of the team. You can see it with Kristi Noem as a pick. She is very obviously picked for this reason. Immigration was a big deal for her, as was criminal justice. You can see with Tom Homan and several others. Another one is the international relations and international policy sphere. You can see he's leaning a little hawkish on that one, which is very interesting. And I know it's not necessarily what a lot of people in the MAGA movement wanted. Rubio, for example, Waltz, for example, several others of these, Miss Stefanik as well. Those are all picks that are a little bit hawkish. And yet at the same time, it also kind of shows why that he's looking for a broader base of influence there, and not just surrounding himself with people who think only like him. And one thing that I think is important to remember too is that last time around, when he did have these very heavy war hawks in place, he was quick to change people out. That's another thing to keep in mind. Right. If you're fired is very he's not shy to get rid of people who aren't working in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then on top of that as well,
we still didn't go to war.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We still didn't go to war. He was very restrained, even though he had heavy George Bush war hawks in there.
Yeah.
So it's there's always a question on someone's record and what they say and how they lean, and then of course the actual in-person inner circle conversations and alignments. And I think that's where, again, we're going to have patience and see how this turns out. I think it's important that the supporters, the voters, make their voices heard and remind the Trump administration that, yeah, we really do not want this new chance at a golden age to get sidetracked by yet another Middle Eastern war. Or yet, okay, so we shut down funding to Ukraine and then does that all go? And now we have wars in Israel or Taiwan, right? So we want to make sure that that's not going to happen. And I think that's his opinion as well. I don't think he wants that. He wants to focus here domestically. And I think it's going to be very difficult to stray that focus.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's take a minute to review briefly the records of some of these folks that were just recently named. Let's start off with Lee Zeldin. We led with him at the top of the show here. Zeldin, for example, he has publicly rejected U.S. participation in global climate change agreements. He's noted that these unfairly penalize the United States while giving countries like China and India just total free reign to continue their carbon emissions unchecked. And he's right. Why should we submit ourselves to economically punitive measures to solve a problem that frankly doesn't really exist? But, especially when our top competitors are not subjected to these same measures. That's just absurd. I think it's clear Zeldin is going to execute Trump's plan to undo unfair democratic environmental policies. As you said, he's going to unshackle oil and gas development and allow us to really become energy self-sufficient once again. Your thoughts?
I think that's so needed. I think it's so necessary. There's, again, of course, there's always the concern on the other side, like, okay, are we going to go too far? Right? China and India pollute so much. I mean, I think it's if I'm not mistaken, something like 80% of the world's pollution comes from the coast of Africa, China, and India. So it's like that's a problem for sure. But yeah, going back to the other side, you can't stop that by shutting yourself down completely. And I think that's the important point that Trump is getting at, that Zeldin would be very good for. Yeah, like you said, the carbon emissions, the whole, like, is this even something that is such a concern to be focusing this much effort and energy and shackling ourselves to this degree around it? That's a great question as well. That's a question that a lot of us are kind of like, okay, let's have that conversation and move along, please.
Right.
But no, this is crucial, and you could tell from the campaign that this was a key cornerstone of what Trump wants in the next 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. It's energy independence, inexpensive energy, domestically produced energy is key to securing America's future. He's hammered that home again and again, and I think with Zeldin in there, he's made the right pick. You spoke about Rubio and Waltz. Okay, so you're right. Yeah, they are really hawks, especially when it comes to China. But they view China as a key threat to U.S. interests, and rather than getting into bed with Beijing, as Biden has done, they aim to take a much harder stance against what is a growing communist superpower. If in the past they've denounced China's unfair trade policies, they've warned about China's espionage campaigns directed against the U.S., and they've pushed for bans on sales of advanced technologies to Beijing. Why? Well, because they understand that helping a communist adversary develop new technologies that it can direct against us is bad for us. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, you don't arm your enemies. Don't give them, don't make them a peer competitor. Look, there's a future in which it's possible to have peaceful trade relations with the whole world, China included.
Sure.
But as we've written many times here, you don't want to risk your national security for ideological purposes. And that's the problem that we've had for a little while now, where it was bordering racist to defend yourself or to not encourage and arm and fund and, help your rivals. So obviously that's coming to an end, which is really good. There are some concerns, of course. Pretty much all of those choices have very strong stances on Iran. There's probably good reason for that. Again, we're not in these inner circle conversations, but there's also a lot of kind of coaxing for intervention against Iran that is very similar to what we saw with Iraq and with some of these other wars. So again, that's going to be a big one to keep an eye on and be cautious over. However, that being said, no one is a one-stop shop and only cares about one thing. There are so many great additional aspects that could potentially come from these picks. So let's see how it goes. Let's see who he chooses.
Yeah, agreed. Finally, let's close out by looking at Governor Kristi Noem. As you mentioned, she's a hardliner on immigration. She's rightly warned that America is facing an invasion along its southern border. She went so far as to block the Biden administration from housing illegal migrants in South Dakota, and she has been effusive in her praise for Texas Governor Greg Abbott for his response to the border crisis. She's even offered to ship razor wire to the border to assist his efforts to curb the illegal influx. And I remember I was particularly impressed. You mentioned her record during COVID. She basically, that's when she made her name for her leadership. During COVID, she, said that basically getting the vaccine was a matter of personal choice. That was radical stuff at the height of the lockdowns 4 years ago. She also bucked calls to issue a statewide stay-at-home order and refused to force citizens of her state to wear face masks. So, her background, all of these folks, after years of absolute lunacy, Democratic lunacy in Washington. Their positions by and large are just what my grandfather used to call just plain old common sense. And I find that so refreshing.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are in many ways the reverse of what's been going on for a long time. Right. Everyone has their faults. Don't get me wrong, and I apologize that I'm always the one bringing them up, but everyone does have faults, and it's politics. You have to be aware of it. You can't just be blind to, to certain things. That being said, there is so much to like about so many of these picks. Kristi Noem is a great example of that. Just her focus on crime. She was the one who brought up that cartels were using reservations to move drugs. She's brought up a lot of controversial topics that people didn't want to talk about. And that's exactly the kind of person you want to have in charge of Homeland Security, in charge of taking care of those cartels, in charge of taking care of the gangs that are coming in, the crime that's coming in, and working in tandem with the new border czar, to actually get that sort of stuff taken care of. It's a brilliant pick. I fully support it.
Yeah, agreed. I do too. Yeah, the names are going to keep coming in over the next several days, few weeks, and so forth. So it will be very, very interesting to watch how Trump's cabinet and his other members of his leadership circle, how they develop here. Arthur, very good discussion and analysis as always. Thank you for joining us, and to our viewers, thank you as always for joining us here for In Depth. God bless you.